Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. This is the Reluctant Youth Worker on Fire, and here today I'm interviewing Mark McCoy. Mark McCoy is a fitness trainer. Just tell me about people that influenced you, middle school, high school.
Okay. Obviously parents had a huge role in that. Growing up, I was born in Iowa, raised in Illinois, corn country, and not a lot to do in that area, and picked up the sport of ice hockey. And my parents were both very driven, goal-oriented people that had a good zest for life. So I had great influence in the household. Christian family that just had a great foundation. Now I know it's based on the 4 F's. I didn't know that situation back then or the philosophy, but following the 4 priorities in life, we always had faith as our foundation. We always had family as our focus. So faith and family were the 2 driving forces in our belief system and our function. But then we ended up with fitness as the 3rd of the F's, and the 4th one was finance, and that was the careers and the business side of things. So really the faith, family, fitness, finance foundation was taught to me at an early age before I realized what it was, but truly enjoyed it. The 4 F's being faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I found that as my family taught this just as part of how we lived, and I learned later what the 4F philosophy was, but it was faith is the foundation, family is what we fought for, health and finances, the body's a temple, fitness was the 3rd F, and then finances is how we supported the family because we live in a monetary society. So, you want to work with ethics and you're fighting for your family, but you want to live a healthy lifestyle, and that's how you create a quality of life and balance. Didn't realize all that till later in life, but I pursued the ice hockey as my outlet for my health, and that just, you didn't think about athletics then, you thought about having fun, and I took to it very well. My parents supported that quite a bit and helped get me from the age of 7 or 8 years old. I started and played it even to this day. I play it, so a lot of fun.
So you had some coaches that influenced you too?
I did. I'll say that on the ice, my coach was one of the other dads, and he was a doctor, was an anesthesiologist, which was good.
He was a volunteer coach.
Yeah, and as a volunteer coach, he was able to have that same perspective because his son played on our team. It was great because when I broke my nose, he said it while I was on the bench, so that was also a blessing to have him around.
Yeah.
But the off-ice training was my biggest influence. A trainer named David Branyan. He worked at the hospital training facility where I was training all through high school. He was a triathlete. He was very smart about health and fitness and knew how to get more out of the body. And my mom was vice president of the hospital, so I would hang out there after school, get up there and go down to the gym, and he started to teach me proper forms, proper function, timelines. And I started realizing that I didn't know what I was doing. I was active. I wasn't in a plan. And he was probably the biggest influence on me at first because he showed me a lot of structure. He showed me how to plan ahead. He showed me how, each time you work out, you don't build muscle, you break it down. You rebuild from nutrition and rest. He said the 23 hours you're not in the gym is almost vitally more important than the hour you're here. So he said, please do what I ask you to do when you're not around. But he knew that the outcome was something I really wanted. So I really had a good time learning that stuff.
And you've influenced a lot of people with that same message.
Yeah, I kept going back to that message, but following my parents' tutelage when it came to how much you have to focus on your goals. It's back to that thing where, and I've been to a lot of seminars. My dad was a motivational speaker and financial planner for a lot of years, and he knew a lot of the people that were out there, Dr. Dennis Waitley and Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar, and we had dinner with Zig Ziglar one night when I was 24. And he summed up exactly what I was thinking with a lot of people in America today, and kids growing up in our conventional education system. The focus is slightly off, where we're learning different skill sets, math, reading, science. We learn the different things. We don't necessarily focus on our why. And they focus on the what, but where does it lead? And Zig said very, very specifically, he says, the conventional education system is not necessarily designed to make you successful. It's designed to make you successful in the job market. But job sometimes stands for just over broke. But it's only because we forgot to ask the first question. And that is not what do you want to be when you grow up or what do you want to do. But the question is, what do you want? Then figure out what you need to do or be that captures the quality of life that you are looking for. But if you've never identified the life, how do you know if you're on the path to it? And that was probably the most incredible revelation of process. He says, figure out your destination. He said, it's kind of like, would you jump in a car with a friend and drive for 4 hours and then ask, where do you want to go? It generally isn't the way you do things. But in our school system, they kind of do. They keep focusing on what you want to be or what you want to do when you grow up, and they forget to ask why you're doing it. What's the outcome? So the kids that know what they want to be when they grow up, some of the kids in class said, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be this electrical engineer. They were so driven with their studies because they knew where it was leading them. I had no clue what I wanted to do or be when I was growing up, so I didn't put in the energy. And I didn't have a very high GPA. I was great at hockey, bad at scholastics. So I didn't give myself any breaks. I didn't get the grades I should have. By the time I started to figure out that health and fitness was the path I wanted to take, I didn't have any scholarships. I wasn't even looked at. I had to go through and just work my way up through the ranks because I didn't see that outcome first. I hadn't identified what I wanted. And sometimes it's not the focus of what you do for a living, but where does it lead you? And that was a huge revelation for me.
Yeah, and that's a big message from you. You were with some of the greatest motivators in the world that your father was friends with and you personally knew.
Yep.
And yet, if you're missing some of that, how much more is a lot of America? Because you were less than a fraction of 0.00001%. You know, that gets that type of influence. And how old were you when you were sitting with Zig Ziglar?
I was about 24.
About 24 at that time.
I'm trying to remember back, but I think I was 24 at that meeting. So.
Right. And here you had some parents that taught you these fundamentals, and you're still struggling with it. And so educators are struggling with that in their own life, and they're educating. Yep. Youth pastors, youth workers are struggling with that in their own life, and they're teaching moral and spiritual principles.
Yep.
So tell me some of the things that you would like to project to some of those people about how to possibly refocus on something that seems to be eluding us.
Okay. 2 things I will focus on. Number 1, do not forget your why. Always have your purpose in front of you. That's your driving motivator. But number 2, life and death comes from the power of the tongue. You can speak positive or you can speak negative into life. If you were in an elevator, do you bring people up or do you bring people down? People remember how they feel when they were with you, not what you said in most cases. People remember less than 10% of what you say. I'm still guilty of making mistakes even today. When I go down the negative side, it has lasting influence. People are my pastor all the time. You just spoke on it again a couple weeks ago. People are influenced by what they hear, because that controls their emotions, and their emotions control their actions. So the power of the tongue is everything to change emotion, which changes actions. So find that positive influence that you're going to be in other people's lives. Zig Ziglar always taught, you help enough other people get what they want, you'll automatically get what you want, because you're adding value to people's lives. You have to bring that value into it. It's hard to say when that will hit you. It's hard to say what it could be until you identify your why to know what your message may be. But always remember, we want to stay positive in the influence, because there's enough negative in the world, we don't need to add to it.
Tell me about health now. I mean, you've talked about health, you've touched on some, but one thing that in our company that we come to you for, and people, I mean, you've had a fitness facility, a gym, you're retired now, but you still help people in that way. You helped Mike Farrow, I believe, and you became partners with the school to certify?
UTA, yep.
Yes, and so tell me about, if there were just a few things to just turn these, us as educators, as youth workers, because we're people of influence, and we've got to focus on ourselves so that we can actually be examples of influence, not just words of influence. So what are some of those health things that, even though we know it, I mean, just talk to Ted Jones. He had his degree in nutrition, you know, or at least part of his degree was. And he said, you know, for 10 years I didn't practice what I knew. So what are we missing there, and what are 2 or 3 of the things that you would say, you know, if you just turn this degree, you know?
I think the hardest part of conveying the message is when we're educated on how the body works. We go through, and if you go through, you know, a bachelor's and master's, a doctorate in health sciences, kinesiology, biochemistry, you learn every detail and chemical as to why something changes in the body and what it can do. You can learn the Krebs cycle, or you can get into glycemic indexes or glycogen loads and macro counting, or any of these different things we get into. And nowadays you hear all kinds of philosophies. But ideally, there should be one more class where they take all the science, they smash it together and give you the cliff notes of, this is how you apply it. And we realize that there's only 3 actual categories. One is rebalancing the body. We all learn the word homeostasis, and if your body's in a true state of balance, it has the ability to do what it needs to do as if you were a teenager again, because you're truly in balance, it's efficient. Then put the right nutrients into the efficient body. If you're balanced and you don't eat, some people are scared of calories, there's nothing to work with. But then if you're out of balance and eat perfect, there's no way to work with it. So technically in health, there's 2 areas, balance and nutrition. When you start to exercise or do the fitness side of things, that's fitness. So health and fitness. People forget there's an and, not healthy fitness industry, health and fitness. So there's a lot of people that are doing unhealthy things to try to look fit. So we want to make sure that we're following the steps and following them in order. So first, health, then add exercise to the healthy individual, and you get long-lasting results and a quality of life. Because technically, the definition of age and weight management is the preservation of optimal human function. But the definition of an athlete is someone at optimal human function. But most people will do diets and underfeed when athletes fuel and train. We diet and exercise. So the goal is to get people to change the mindset. If you've ever heard of a weight loss clinic, or do you want a fat loss clinic? If you want to lose weight, cut your arm off. If you want to lose fat, just target the fat. But underfeeding is losing everything. You're catabolic, you're not anabolic. So the idea is you want to get yourself into a healthy state and then be active. And the body will start to revert back, and it's sustainable.
As guys, we like to hear that. Ladies don't like to hear that as much. What is the disconnect there for ladies that they don't want to hear that you've got to feed your body more?
Because we have been told that if you burn more calories than you take in, you'll lose weight, which is a true statement. But then again, I go back to the philosophy. Do you want to lose weight or do you want to lose fat? If you stay in the wrong philosophical thinking, everything makes sense, but it's not actually what you're asking for. If you say, I want to have more energy, more muscle tone, less body fat, better health. I mean, have you ever heard somebody go, oh my God, I binged on broccoli? When do you overeat good food? That's kind of a hard thing to do. But we are told in this society that a calorie is a calorie. In the medical definition, I know that's true. Can you raise water temperature 1 degree through the energy output? I get that. But the question is, can I lose 20 pounds of body fat and tone up? Right? So I'm pretty sure a salmon fillet and a powdered donut don't do the same thing in my body. I'm pretty sure based on my goal, a calorie is not a calorie. So if I'm putting the right amount of nutrition in my body and it's balanced first, my body should respond better. I just want to get a good plan of action for that. And that is following the true steps. I mean, even predictable and sustainable change only has 8 steps. There's 4 in balance, there's 2 in nutrition, and there's 2 in fitness. And you actually have the 8 steps of a high level of training, almost an Olympic protocol in 8 steps. It takes about 10 minutes to go through it. But most people generally have never even heard. They go, line up the dots. They go, great, what are the dots? Well, the 3 main categories is balance, feed, and move. Stay in your wheelhouse and the body will respond. It doesn't happen overnight. But the last thing people want in the society are a 350-pound cardiac nurse saying, you need to lose weight, it's bad on your heart. It's not leading by the example. You're not leading from the front. Now, don't get me wrong. My mom's a vice president of hospitals for 50 years. She's the one that told me that a cardiac nurse said that once, and she realized, that's not a very good example. But I realized that nurses are one of the greatest heart professions out there. They literally have such a big heart that they put all their energy into others at their own expense. So, it's an underpaid profession for people that have such influence in people and saving them in their time of need. That is a noble, noble job. And I can tell you that it's hard to take advice from people that don't walk the walk, even though they're right. So.
Yeah, and I've heard my own cardiologist. I have a cardiologist because of some health issues, because of what I did not do, thinking I was doing the right thing. And one thing he said, well, some of the things that I'm doing to you, I'll never have done to myself. and we know about, they are such givers, and he is a great doctor.
Yeah.
Saved a lot of people, saved me. But I want to cover a couple of things here, and I know you're on limited time too, and that is...
Actually, I'm retired. I'm not on limited time.
You're not on limited time. Okay, we're good then.
Yeah.
This will be an extra long one.
There we go.
This into 4 sections.
There we go.
Talk about hydration. Hydration, I think, is a huge thing that I've learned about over the last 20 years. And I think in the last 3, I realized that a lot of my health issues were dehydration. I believe that most of our nation, I'm going to guess that most of our nation, and probably a good portion of the world, is dealing with dehydration.
Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts on dehydration, the value of it, being hydrated, and
Yeah, and it's down to what does the science show, and science is always evolving. So we just look and see what the medical documents are showing, what the proof of people, how they change, what the benefits are. There was a doctor that wrote a great book that says you're not sick, you're thirsty. Most people's toxin levels keep elevating, and even if you're just 20-30% dehydrated, the cells in your body slowly just start to clump together. Well, if the surface areas are blocked, it's hard for the toxins to get out and the nutrients to get in, so the body's just less efficient, which causes a buildup in toxins, which causes a buildup of inflammatory response, and the body has to play an uphill battle of always overloading the immune system, and this slows down every system in your body. So doctors usually will go out and tell people that you should drink 8 8-ounce glasses a day. And I just got thinking one day, and I was like, was that for a 5-year-old or Shaq? Is there a way to benchmark that as to where do these numbers come from? Because I'm pretty sure they don't drink the same amount of water. Not everybody should be on the same amount. So right. In the sports world, we have learned that it's about half your body weight in ounces per day. And the rule of thumb is feed the body you want, pick your goal weight and feed that as an elite athletic level if you're training, and hydrate the body you have. So if it's half your body weight in ounces per day, plus activity, plus climate, about a 20% increase is what they say on average. And it's just what's working in the sports world right now. And it may be different for some people, but check with your doctor and go through that and find out. But I can say that every time, if someone's 100 ounces of water a day, it's probably a 200-pound athlete. And if they're here in Florida with us, I'm pretty sure the heat index is a little higher. They add 20% on the training days. And if they're working out outside in the heat and they're working out, there's another 20%. So 140 ounces of water, or a gallon and a quarter about, for a 200-pound athlete is not unusual. But 64 ounces, I'm pretty sure they're not very efficient. So we just try to go by half the body weight plus activity plus climate. If it seems like you're drinking a lot and you're not eating a lot of food, then you could cut back on that, or increase the food. There has been cases, there was a DC bike cop that was using the Camel Pack backpack water thing, but he was also on a diet. He was eating so little in calories and drinking 2.5 gallons of water a day out in the summer on the bike, and he actually had heart palpitations and died from hyponatremia. It's very rare to get to the overhydration side, but if you undereat and overhydrate, you can go the other direction. So we try to monitor the levels.
2 last things. One is you and I are always discussing, okay, now listen, we can't make medical claims.
That's right.
And you're not a nutritionist, you emphasize that. So tell me how you got the information that you've got.
Following different doctors that actually do the research. We just look at the information based on what pros are doing. So if Dr. William Kramer, past president of National College of Sports Medicine,
yeah.
He's incredible. If the science and the reports have shown these levels to be there and be true, then we just follow the lead. But you can go anywhere from the RDA numbers, which based on, I just researched one day and I looked up the history of the RDA. Go to Wikipedia, that's what I did. And it said that it was established in 1941 by 3 doctors, revised up until the late 1950s, based on post-World War food rationing, post-World War II. Now, if you're going off of food rationing, those are more minimal levels than optimal levels. Well, I don't know anybody that walks into a gym and says, I can't wait till I'm average. They generally say, I want to be my best. I'd like to hit my potential. So shouldn't we be eating the optimal levels of nutrition and optimal levels of food intake and all the different things that bring that together, hydration, things like that? So why aren't we following what the best do? So we'd rather look at the information on highest levels and optimal rather than minimal. So where RDA is a great standard of minimals, it's not my goal. So I don't need to go by those numbers. I don't want to go by those numbers. I go by the higher levels and put in the exercise and get the benefits.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. Thank you. And
cool.
Last question, though, is several areas, faith-based groups,
Yep.
churches, and different faiths, but as well as in the public school system.
Mm-hmm.
So some of this is going to reach a lot of different areas. Tell me about we've talked about your relationship with God before,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ, and
Yep.
give me some little background there, or doesn't have to be your background, but tell me where you are with your relationship and how that balances life.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that I grew up in a Christian household, but had my rebellious years and fell away from the Lord for a lot of years, decades, and have recently come back to following God's principles and realized that if you have taken Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, then you have everlasting life. You will have life thereafter. If you want heaven on earth, follow God's laws. Every time I don't follow God's laws, I had turmoil in my life. So I decided to go back to church, had some influence from some great mentors in my life, recent mentors, my buddy Ray, my friend Jack, another friend of mine, Joseph, who I am now dating, got me back into church. And I've been in a church that is non-denominational, but the owner of the church is the owner of a seminary school. So theology and teaching is very high in there, and learning every day. One of the things, though, is asking for repentance and realizing that no one is perfect. But if you don't learn the lesson in each of the turmoils in your life, how do you ever move past if you don't ask for forgiveness and then learn the lesson and move on? Your life experience is how you bring value to other people's lives. I've realized that it's not the problems in life that define you. It's the path you take after that defines you. So you have to take that and say, without my struggles, I have no experience. I have no value to add. So following that teaching and that theology, understanding of where that all came from, is knowing that there is redemption and there is a way back on the path. Don't think it's lost or you have no hope. If that were true, nobody would be saved or have any goals, because we think that once we make a mistake, you can't come back from it. It's not true.
Great stuff, Mark. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
This is Youth Worker on Fire.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.